Welcome to the Cove Wellbeing Talk Show, a show that opens up the conversation on men's mental health and empowers men with the knowledge and inner resources to heal. On each episode, we take a look at a topic, story, or health issue that features on our YouTube channel. Alongside wellness experts and practitioners, we talk all things mental and emotional health. Men's health matters, and here at MCW, we want to shine a light. You can visit www.patreon.com/MCW to find out more about how to join the MCW community. Please reach out for support, guidance, and advice from a qualified health professional. If you find anything discussed here today triggering or uncomfortable, please press the stop button and look after you. We hope you enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. Welcome to the show. I am Owen Morgan, creator of Cove Wellbeing, and I want to thank all our patrons for supporting us and allowing this talk show to happen. I create, produce, and edit all the videos and talk shows you see and hear. I do this alongside my life as a massage therapist and a stepdad to an awesome 4-year-old. But I would love to make more content, and this is only possible by having amazing patrons helping me along the way, so I have more time to create. You can find out more about this at www.patreon.com/MCW, link in description. So today we're talking about self-esteem and self-confidence, what it is, how it affects us, and what we can do about it to boost it and have more of it. This show is very much an extension of the videos you see on our YouTube channel. We want to open up further conversation on all things wellness. The link to our YouTube channel on all the videos are in the description of this video or podcast that you may be listening to. So let's start the show today. Later on, we will have the amazing, well, I say later on, should be throughout the show, Polly Brennan, we call her Polly, who works with men all over the world to support them with their own confidence. So this is really exciting for us to have a woman on the show to share what she knows from the men she's worked with. And as always, I have Stephen Truelove and Darryl Osborne on the show. How are we today, Steve?
I'm really good today, thank you, Owen. It's lovely to be here, and I'm guessing that we're going to have a slightly different show today with a female participant, which will be really good, interesting.
Yes, definitely. We just want to get as many guests on the show as we can, just to bring lots of different minds onto here, and women, play a huge part in helping men with their health, so it makes sense to have them on. So yeah, really looking forward to that. How are we today, Darryl?
Yeah, I'm very well, Owen. Feeling inspired this morning, and it's great to be back on with you guys. It seems a perfect time to be back on with another show.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This is episode 6. We are flying through these episodes now. So today we have the amazing Polly Brennan on the show with us. We recorded with her at a different time due to Polly's amazing work with the NHS through these uncertain times. We thank her so much for what she's doing. But she's also runs her own coaching business as well. While not doing that, she lives in the northeast of England, up in the Newcastle area. And she also works with clients across the world. So welcome, Polly. How are you today?
Hello there, Owen. It's great to be here. I am fantastic because I've been childishly excited about coming to speak to you and to hear what you and the guys are talking about today. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. I met some absolutely amazing wellness advocates, therapists and coaches over the years in other projects. So I thought, Polly will be good for the men's health show because I know how much you work with men. So it made sense to bring you on today, which is really exciting. I just want to thank you so much for the work you're doing with the NHS, because everybody has been recorded around the time of the pandemic of 2020. If you listen to this years from now. Yeah. Crazy times, but everybody is doing their bit to help each other, which is great. So before we get into the questions with you, Darryl and Steve, it'd be great to find out that I know you work with men and what you do. So what kind of led you into that work, and kind of what is your approach when you're working with your chaps?
Yeah, so I've worked for the NHS for 25 years, an occupational therapist, and I guess I've worked with people who perhaps at their most vulnerable, really, in mental health services when they have been very unwell, and they're trying to find a way, navigate a way forward, and find solutions to allow them to jump back into life and live life to the full. And I consider it a real privilege to get to work alongside people on their journey, because there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and I'm just so impressed by how resilient people are and how able people are to find solutions to the challenges they face. So I think from a very early age, I kind of have always had this sense that people are incredibly resourceful and able to find solutions to the challenges they face. And so I think for a long, long time, I've always sort of maybe known this was the kind of work that was going to find me. I think my approach to work and to life is that I'd call it going NATO, which means I'm sort of not attached to the outcome. I kind of like go where things take me. And so I guess this sort of found me rather than me finding this. Working alongside men's just been one of those things that I've appeared to find myself in this situation, and it's something I really love to do. I love to work with people from all walks of life. So at the moment I work in a high dependency unit for males who experience psychosis, and we try and help them find their way back towards a life well lived, and to help them find ways to have more and be more and do more. And then alongside that, my mental fitness coaching is a lovely parallel, I guess, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, I guess, the worst things could be in terms of mental health, and 10 being the best. My NHS work really helps me take people from, I suppose, 0 up to 5. And then coaching helps me work alongside people who have their head above water, and they just want to develop some tools and skills to absolutely thrive and really make them the best of the rest of whatever life holds. Because the world's spinning and the clock's ticking, and we have to, I think somebody said to me, we're here for a good time, not for a long time. So we really have to make the most.
Yeah, I really love that saying. And yeah, I mean, how powerful it is to work with people on all spectrums of mental health, really. It's super powerful. And like you said, sometimes you kind of flow and fall into certain demographics, don't you? It just happens naturally.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just have to appreciate that sometimes there's a bigger plan for you, and you have to just go with it and see where it takes you. And I think that's one of the exciting things about life, isn't it? It's just seeing where your journey takes you along the way. I've found work with military veterans, so I've done a lot of work in that field too. And again, it's just been something that's found me, and I consider it a privilege to do that.
Yeah, well, absolutely amazing. I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. I think this is going to be so valuable for what we're talking about, which is self-esteem and self-confidence, which is, we've worked our way through many subjects, but today we really wanted to approach the idea of a woman coming on the show and talking about how they work with men, because their interpretation may be slightly different to men. So we're really excited today to have you on and look at this. So we're going to get your responses to all questions as the show goes through. So Steve, Darryl and yourself will be helping us through the show today. So thank you.
Thank you.
So today we are talking about self-esteem and self-confidence. So before I talk to the guys initially about this, let's just see what Wikipedia says, which is always sometimes a pinch of salt, but let's see. So here we go. What is self-esteem? It says here, self-esteem is an individual's subjective evaluation of their own worth. Self-esteem encompasses beliefs about oneself. For example, I am unloved, I am worthy, as well as emotional states such as triumph, despair, pride, and shame. Smith and Mackey defined it by saying the self-concept is what we think about ourselves. Self-esteem is the positive or negative evaluations of the self, as in how we feel about it. So that's self-esteem. Now, self-confidence, it says here, the concept of self-confidence is commonly used as a self-assurance in one's personal judgment, ability, and power. One's self-confidence increases from the experiences of having satisfactorily completed particular activities. It is a positive belief that in the future one can generally accomplish what one wishes to do. Self-confidence is not the same as self-esteem, which is an evaluation of one's truth or one's worth. where self-confidence is more specifically trust in one's ability to achieve some goal, which one meta-analysis suggested is a similar generalization to self-efficacy. So, as much as that kind of makes sense, we're going to talk a lot more about it from our own perspective. So, what is self-confidence and self-esteem from our perspective? So, Steve, if I can head over to you to what you see as those two ways of being with the self.
Well, as you just said, there's a difference between the two. So just to differentiate from my point of view, self-esteem is how we're analysing ourselves internally. So very often people externally don't really see that we are lacking in self-esteem, because it's generally an internal concept that's going on. And it is how you analyse yourself and your own self-worth according to you and your map of the world that you've sort of, again, been conditioned with throughout your life. So it's lack of self-respect, self-love, and again, these are all due to experiences we've had. Now, if we move over to confidence, confidence is usually a trust in our own abilities to be able to achieve what we're doing. So this is more of an external thing often, because we can often see somebody who's lacking in confidence shows up in their body language. You know, there's a difference when you see them, you think, they're not quite confident doing that. How do you know? It just shows up in the way they're being. So as long as you trust in your own abilities, confidence, public speaking is a classic. You know, very often I know people who are afraid and lacking confidence to talk on the phone. Now again, that usually comes back to experiences. So if you trust in your own abilities, your confidence can be good. If you love and respect yourself, your self-esteem could be good.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to look at it. And I know we're probably going to be reiterating what we've said on Wikipedia, but it's nice to see it from that angle. And like self-love, you throw that in the mix, and also how we observe ourselves. You know, what's the narrative we attach to ourselves and our belief systems? It's really interesting. So Darryl, for you, how do you see these two beings with the self?
For me, self-esteem is ultimately to do with like a relationship with yourself. So like some of the stuff Steve has touched on there, and the self-love being key, self-worth, these kind of things, the belief. So in having high self-esteem and low self-esteem, there's lots of different levels along it. But the ultimate to having high self-esteem is believing that you are enough, that all these things, you are lovable, you are, and all these things that play out in your mind. And we talk about language. So it's kind of having that belief and that love for yourself. So to have ultimate, and I feel like it links to confidence in a lot of ways, although there's separate bits to it in a way. The more high your self-esteem is, the higher your confidence is. If you have ultimate kind of self-esteem in a sense and you love yourself, you're enough, no matter what the situation. Like I didn't used to, but now I do. And you get to that point where you just be yourself no matter what in any situation, then your confidence is high in everything. But there are situations where confidence can be separate, and some people can have fairly low self-esteem, even very low self-esteem, and be confident in certain tasks or roles. And we quite like to do that as humans, don't we? Like put ourselves into job roles. And you can be confident of that, but you take them out of that and they can be really unconfident. Or like Steve said with the speaking, a lot of people are confident in the things they do regularly, maybe their job or as a parent, but then you put them in front of people out of their comfort zone, then they're unconfident. But ultimately, if you have got high self-esteem, where now, like myself, I'm in a position where I've gone from having really low self-esteem to very high self-esteem, where now, put me anywhere, and you get feelings come up, but it's not to do with confidence. It's just realizing that you are perfect just as you are enough just as you are, wherever you go, whatever you do. And then confidence is ultimate. So they are connected and really powerful.
Yeah, I think both you've touched on we have these experiences that allow us to see that we can be confident in those situations, or in certain situations we may feel we are lovable in that circumstance, but not lovable in other circumstances. So the experiences we have do shape, I guess, on some level what we go through. And then also the narrative the story that you create around that. So, you constantly telling yourself you're unlovable and looking for confirmation of that. And confirmation bias is something that came up on a TV show I was watching literally this morning, confirmation bias, about how we'll have these assumptions about ourselves that we over time want to believe in, and we look for confirmation of that. So if someone says that to us, it confirms our assumption, and then we build a belief off that. So confirmation bias and looking for evidence that you can't do it is also not helpful, but probably primal on some level as a perfection thing. So, Polly, with the people that you work with, how have you perceived seeing them with self-confidence and self-esteem?
Okay, so it's really interesting, isn't it? So I think when we think about our self-esteem, it's very much to me about the way we view ourselves in the world. It's a sense of a confidence about your being. I think that self-esteem is about understanding who we are and having a strong sense of self. And it's a feeling of sort of self-assurance that arises from being able to appreciate yourselves. And I think that when I'm coaching people, sometimes the very first thing we look at is I ask a question, which is, what's your story? Because I think we explain ourselves and we describe ourselves to the world and to ourselves in terms of stories. We tell a story about ourselves. And what's really important is that we create a powerful story that really describes us in contexts of being powerful, being empowered, and being able to actually thrive in life. I think we've got two selves. I think we've got the kind of person that we are, being who we are, and we've got the second self, which is often our inner critic. And sometimes that can really impact how we see ourselves and what we believe. And as we all know, when we're growing up in life, we have influences, we have people in our lives, and we have experiences in our lives. And I think these experiences and the messages that we grow up with really influence that sense of who we believe ourselves to be and what we believe to be possible for ourselves. And I think that's kind of how our self-esteem evolves and grows as we kind of go through childhood and into, being a trainee adult, if you like, and into adulthood. So I think we carry a story about ourselves that's connected to our self-esteem.
Yeah, so interesting, because like me and Darryl and Steve just said, we're talking about narrative and how we can create narrative around past experiences, the current experiences, narrative we may have picked up from other people, and taken that narrative on as something to be true about ourselves that can massively impact, our sense of our self-worth and our self-esteem.
Hugely. I discovered coaching a long time ago because I was having a struggle myself, and I hired a coach to help me work out how to tackle a particular situation or a particular time in life. The very first question she asked me was probably the most important question she asked me. She said, "How's this story working out for you?" And at that moment, I think I felt a sense of kind of almost disbelief that she was telling me it was a story, because in my head it was reality. But I realised very quickly that what she was saying to me was, you have a choice about how you view your life, yourself, and your circumstances. And she then invited me to think of a way to tell the story that was going to be more empowering and helpful to me. And that took me on a really fantastic journey to sort of take control of the story. But also what she helped me to do was to realise that if the story you're telling yourself isn't helpful, change the story or change the meaning. And that in itself is really, really important for us all to bear in mind. We can change the story or the perspective, or we can decide which parts of the story we want to actually define us. And then we can actually choose what we take forward and tell the world and ourselves, most importantly.
Yeah, I really like that. And we're kind of meaning searching machines, aren't we? We're always in the quest to find meaning for everything, which, in the current situation with the pandemic is quite a tricky one to do. Trying to understand what's happening and what is the meaning behind it all. Sometimes we just don't know what the meaning is in this moment. Sometimes
we have to wait till later, and it will unfold and it all will become clearer. And right now we're just, as you say, unsure. But what's a fact about what's happening right now is that we all will have a shared story of overcoming adversity in the face of a pandemic. And what a brilliant story that's going to be for us all to take forward. To be able to see how we survived and thrived through it, and what we learned along the way, and what we gave our attention to. So it's going to be a really great space for us all to have a really brilliant story that will boost our self-esteem.
Yeah, definitely. And, for years, I don't think our generation will ever forget this. So, it's part of history that we're all going to reflect on, and, how we got through it and the meaning and narrative we attach to that too. But no, that's great. Thanks so much, Polly. So next up, we're looking at our own personal experiences of this. So for you guys, have you had times with either of these of, being low on self-esteem or low with confidence? And how was it for you? How do you feel it affected your behavior? If we head back over to you, Steve, what's been your own personal experiences with these two?
Yeah, around 9 years of age, I told myself the story that I'm all alone and unloved through an experience that happened. And I'm guessing that really knocked my self-esteem, even though I wouldn't have realised it at the time. So, there was lack of self-love because I believed that I was alone and unloved. So that really knocked the self-esteem, which had an impact moving through my life until I did the work, got to see the story that was behind it and set myself free. And the confidence side of things, that was shot around 4 years of age when I had an experience with a teacher at school. And again, I didn't realise how much impact that had had on my life until much, much later, probably into my 30s, when I was able to look back and see how it affected me and stopped me, my own confidence in so many areas, in sport, in education, even in relationships, and how I was relating to people. My confidence had really been knocked. And that's probably a lot of the experience for people, but it's being able to see what started it off so you can undo it. Yeah, so my confidence, my self-esteem was probably on hold well into my 30s, and that's when life completely changed for me.
Yeah, and I guess there's different ages that will have different levels of it, and I always think about this with my stepson, just the most unbelievable confidence and self-awareness that he has at 3 and 4 years old, and how you can see over time from school experiences, different people you hang out with, maybe parents are going through some issues and that's reflecting in the child, and it slowly shapes their interpretation of themselves, I guess. So, there's different times in our lives where we may feel more confident or less confident, would you say?
Well, I always look at it like a sine wave. If you go back to physics and you got the sine wave, very often we're dipping up and we're dipping down. And I say to people, if you can learn to surf near the top, then you're going to be in a good place most of the time.
Yeah, and that's a really nice way to look at it, actually. And for you, Darryl, you're a little bit younger than us. I know I mentioned that before, but has it shifted and changed for you?
Yeah, massively. Massively. The way I look at it, just as you guys were saying that, it's a bit like if you're pruning the garden. You can take them right down to the roots and you can deal with a lot of things. And I felt confident in a lot of ways as life went on, but still until you take those roots out, they still have hold over you. And something we mentioned earlier as well, it's not always conscious, it's not always simple. You don't feel loved, you don't feel like you're enough. I didn't really have that particularly in my head directly, but I had lots when I was younger where I didn't feel like I fitted in, I didn't feel like I connected. So in lots of ways, I felt unlovable looking back. I felt unconfident, I was very shy, very inward, the complete opposite to what I am now. I was confident in a sense at home, but outside I was very quiet. I wasn't being able to express my true self, and I think that's the key. When you're not expressing yourself fully, and for a lot of people, you probably don't really know what that looks like, but when you look back to children like you mentioned, Owen, that's what it looks like. Uncompromising, just being yourself. Very few people do that. So the level to be completely free of that and to get out of the roots is, for 99.9% of us on the planet, still have lots of work to do. So it's really interesting, but over the years it's been a huge journey. And first of all, it's awareness, because at the time, for most of it, there was a little awareness to this and what and how to deal with it. So it's only like in the last few years and even the last year that I've really noticed what these things are and really been able to get at the roots and understand them and to confront them, because a lot of us, and when you're busy in life, people just don't know. So there's little things you'll do and you think, I think I'm enough, I think I'm confident, and there's a lot of this fake confidence in the world as well, a real big thing, especially with men, like we're talking about now, where you have to put on bravado and you have to feel, and because you're loud and you don't stutter, you're confident, but that's not necessarily true. Being vulnerable, like we talked about in the last episode, that is true confidence, just expressing love and the truest expression of yourself fully in everything you do. So then that kind of the roles and the things disappear in life and we're just who we are at our core. And very few people live like that. So I think it's really important. And confidence is a huge part of that, because I built the confidence before I dealt with the roots in a lot of ways, but to have the full, all-encompassing confidence where, in the truest, deepest sense, you had to deal with that self-worth, that self-esteem completely. So I think, for me, it's been a huge part of my journey, and it's a huge part of what I do. This is what it is, to step into greatness. that self-worth and that belief in yourself so you can completely be yourself. Until you can do that and express yourself in all these ways that a lot of these things that you've often got judged for in the past, but you have to let that go because that is your beauty and step into that. And it's a journey, but it's super powerful.
The impact is on your behaviours as well, because of the experiences I had. I was shy, I was timid, I was afraid. So what I used to go into was avoidance and afraid of getting things wrong. And that's where the confidence came and the lack of self-esteem. And as soon as I realised the story that was behind it, you can step out and, as Darryl rightly says, step into your greatness, because it's there for everybody.
That's so true, Steve. And the thing that comes up when you say that as well is the fear of failure. It's a big thing across the world, isn't it? But
absolutely. Yeah.
What does it really mean? Nothing. It's just learning and growing to move into that and to create the life you want. And there is no real failure, but people put that thing like, I've got to do well, I've got to succeed, I've got to show I'm succeeding. And a lot of the stuff you see online and businesses, they're just showing you this perfect image of them, and just being vulnerable and open is the key.
Well, the classic is there's never any failure, there's only feedback, We're learning all the time. So if you never fail at anything, you're never going to learn to grow. So
definitely. I used to be afraid of failure, now I love it. There is no failure.
Yeah, thank you guys. And it kind of made me think a lot about what you just said there with like actions and behaviors. What's the worst thing that can happen when you're about to give this public speaking, about to do a talk at an event? It's the classic. What's the worst that can happen? What's stopping you from doing that? Is it a combination of fear and lack of confidence? Is it just fear that you're perceiving as not being confident? There's so many narratives that you create from that. And I know I work with actors a lot. So as a massage therapist, I work a lot with them. And all of these actors that I meet they're so amazing, but they are nothing like the bravado that they put out there. They're such a brilliant, confident, amazing on stage, just brilliant. And then when I meet them, they're just normal people like you and me. They all have, insecurities here and there. They share a lot of that with me, and it's really beautiful to see them open up to me like that. And it just shows what confidence really is and how it can impact us in different areas of our life. I can see, Steve, you're keen to say something, so over to you.
Well, there's a classic. I noticed the other day you posted something. You watched Rocket Man. I watched it, and what was going on behind the scenes and the records and the connections. I understand more, and I've listened to them records all my life, of Elton John. But he had this persona. Once he hit that stage, he became somebody else, and people didn't realize all this trauma that was going on in the background, until this was portrayed.
Yeah, Rocket Man is such a brilliant example, and how our perceptions of other people. So we may look at someone on Instagram or an actor and go, wow, I want to be like them. They're super confident. So we've even got a narrative about this person that might not even be true. And we're perceiving that as what confidence should be, rather than coming into ourselves and owning who we are for all of us, all our struggles and the things that we've got right, all the things we're perceiving as wrong. Just own all of it. Own, if you have anxiety, own that, just understand that, these experiences have got you to this point, but there's, it's maladaptive. We can keep changing these things. They talk a lot about with the brain with is it neuroplasticity, where things can change over time too. And like from my own personal perspective, if anybody knows me, Steve will know this very well. When I do things like this, radio shows, when I ran something called the World Health Heroes for a while, I would stand up in front of 30 or 40 people and just do a killer talk. Right. But this is the same guy that would struggle a lot with women and didn't know who I was and was kind of lost. But you stick me in front of an audience and I come off as this vibrant, energetic chap. And I was like, oh my God, you're so inspiring. Like you're just buzzing. And you don't really know. So I could do this no problem. I love this kind of stuff and I'll come off as super confident. But with my personal relationships and friends, who knows, I may struggle with that. And maybe that's the same for actors or sports people, whoever. So it's not as simple. It's not black and white here, what we're talking about today. It just isn't that simple. You're not confident or unconfident. There's different levels to that, depending on what you're going through. And for you, Polly, what have been your experiences as a woman? And also, what's been your experiences of seeing men in your life and how they've worked with their confidence?
Well, that's a great question. I love that question. So, do you know what that leads me on to is the question that you asked me last, which was the difference between self-esteem and confidence. So I often think about confidence as being that belief in ourselves and what we can do. So I think that confidence and competence are very closely connected. So we can at times be really capable and able in our lives to do particular things or carry out roles or tasks. But that's very different to confidence, which is your belief in yourself and your ability. And I find that this subject so interesting because I think I'm someone that sometimes I can be very busy creating, actions and outcomes and getting things done. And being capable doesn't necessarily mean that we always know we're capable. So we perhaps look around us for validation from other people. And when I get a compliment or praise, I love it. I love it when people give me feedback and I need it. So it's that reminder that, external validation is so important, but also it's important for us to be able to look in on ourselves and look at what we're achieving and look at our competencies and our abilities and know that we can do more. And I can tell you a lot of stories really about times where my confidence has been low, because I think it's something that, a bit like everything in life, I don't think that you just somehow achieve something and then you tick the box and that's it and you've got it forever. I think that confidence, resilience, self-esteem are things that we have to work on. And we have to, a little bit like going to the gym and working out our muscles, we have to kind of constantly work on having these things. So there's times in my life where my confidence is really high. So if I've set a goal and accomplished it, my confidence is generally quite high. And there's other times when maybe there's more challenges in the way and I can't get stuff done and my confidence is low. Now, as a coach, I have a coach. So it's really, really important to be coached. And I once took to coaching that I didn't feel very confident in my ability to be a coach. And we sort of used the time to explore why that was so and what was the issue. And my coach asked me, when do you most feel like a coach? And the answer really surprised me because it was pure and simple. When I'm coaching, I feel like a coach. So it reminded me that, our confidence is really influenced by what we're doing. So it's important for us to have set tasks that we can achieve and to gain confidence by being able to achieve the outcomes we want. So to do that, you have to have what I would call like the Goldilocks rule, which is the tasks and challenges we set ourselves have to be just right, a bit like Goldilocks in our porridge. If the tasks and challenges and goals we have are in excess of what our capability is, then what happens is we lose our confidence and we wobble. And if the challenges and goals we set ourselves are too easy, then we don't thrive because we don't value that thing. It's too easy for us. So the kind of just right challenge is right in the middle. And that sweet spot is where our confidence really, really grows. Now, about a year ago, I started doing the job that I'm doing. And I was because it was a new role, I was faced with a transition. And I think when you look at people and confidence, often where our confidence becomes wobblier is when we hit a transition or a change. And perhaps we have to adapt to maybe a new role or a new situation where there's lots more unknowns. And what was lovely for me was I transitioned into this role very unexpectedly after life had pretty much turned upside down for me unexpectedly and out with my control. And I was then in a new situation I hadn't anticipated, doing a new role in a new place. And I guess I was doing lots of doing and trying to, settle in and be capable and useful and contribute. But inside my heart and my head, I wasn't feeling confident. And I was probably overcompensating for that until one patient took me aside and had a word with me, one of the male patients on the ward, and said to me, "You're enough. You're doing enough. You're being enough. It's okay. We're glad we've got you." And you know what was really lovely for me about that was it was such a shift of power or perceived power, whereby we were just two human beings together. And I was being supported by someone else who, in the grand scheme of things, was probably most of the time in receipt of support. And there he was, able to recognise and look in on me and see vulnerability and recognise that I needed some reassurance there. And I thought that was a really lovely moment. being able to receive that from someone else and accept that and realize that we can all be vulnerable in terms of our confidence at times in our lives.
Yeah, definitely. What I think is really powerful about what you said there is towards the beginning was how sometimes we don't know that we are really good at something, and we just don't see it. Our narrative is causing us to not see that actually we're very good at something until someone picks it out and says, you do realize like how awesomely amazing you are at that. And you're like, oh, okay.
Absolutely. And often when I'm looking at confidence with people, we make very global statements, don't we? Like, I'm not very good with technology, or I'm not good at. And it's a very global statement, but actually it might not be quite true. It might be, I'm not very confident at a particular thing, but there are always exceptions to problems. So there's always going to be a time where we are going to be confident. So we're looking at the issue of confidence. We might have confidence or self-esteem issues, but there will be times where we are capable and able. And I think our job when we're coaching and supporting people is to help them work out where they are more confident, to look for the presence of confidence and to learn more about that. So at times when you do feel confident, what's happening around you? What do you behave like when you're confident? What do you feel like? What's your environment like? Who's helping you? And actually assuming and presupposing that confidence is present, just not at all the times, or maybe not where you'd like it to be present, and learning from that. I think that's a really, really valuable thing to bear in mind, is that there will always be exceptions to the problem, and we can learn so much from those exceptions to help us and translate that into other situations.
I love that. Yeah, so true. And the next question is all about hints, tips, and ideas that people could start to implement. So there's one thing you mentioned that we're definitely going to return to in a second when we go to the next question, because I picked up on it. I thought we need to tell people more about that. Okay, so let's start looking at ideas, tips, and techniques. This is what everybody's tuning in for, I'm sure, is find out a little bit more of things that they can use to help boost either of the things we've been talking about today. So, Steve, as always, we'll head back to you to start with. Any ideas and tips that you've used with your clients over the years?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We work with this a lot. So, the first thing I say is you've got to enjoy the process of whatever you're doing, because when you're enjoying something, you're far more likely to be more in the zone, and not letting all the little stories come in. So it's about bringing some passion into what you're doing. And when you're doing that, you'll feel a lot more confident. You'll feel more reassured. Self-esteem is probably not a question then, because if you're passionate about something, you're not really too concerned about things going, the wrong way, because again, you're going to learn from it. So there is an exercise I often say to people, especially when we use EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, and we go through one part of the process about love and accepting yourself, and that's what we've talked about earlier. So a lot of people will fall down at that point because they haven't got the love, respect, or acceptance of themselves. So what I say to them is, every day practice this. Gaze into the mirror, straight into your own eyes, and some people will find this a little bit uncomfortable, and just recite, I love and accept myself. And the little voice will pop up in the back of the head and say, well, maybe no you don't, because, but you just ignore it and you keep going and you keep going. And we go back to neuroplasticity then, where over time there's a reprogramming going on within this person themselves, until they start saying, I love and accept myself, and they go, yeah, I do. That's right, I do. So they start to move the boundaries of where they've been stuck and start stepping into their greatness. I love that. What Darryl brings up, stepping into your greatness.
Yeah, as I say there, careful, don't take any taglines.
No.
But yeah, no, I've heard that one before, actually, from a few people, and it seems pretty powerful from what I've heard people say. And I guess negativity bias probably kicks in slightly, as you said.
Possibly, yeah. But the eyes are the gateway to the soul, as they say. And if you look inside yourself, which is what we do when we do the work we do, and release, and it doesn't always happen immediately, for some it's quicker than others, but release that negative side so the positive side can start to be there more and show up every day.
Oh, I love that. Great stuff. So for you, Darryl, what's some ideas that you've had or used?
Yeah, I was just going to share something, but then Steve inspired me what he's saying, and I really, really connect with that. So I just want to kind of add my bit behind that. The coaching course that I've done, we do a lot with energy and what they call these kind of things, gremlins. You have like a gremlin inside you. And these kind of, I love that kind of thing when you look in the mirror, that's brilliant. And you say these things to you. And the way I've done it, and to get it really personal, is to kind of discover what your gremlin is. Because often there's kind of one kind of strong, or maybe a few, but there's usually one core one. And they're all rooted in I am not enough. But then what specifically is that? Because I find it has way more power if you can specifically get what that is, and then we kind of rephrase it almost as well. So for me, it was, I can't remember what it was now, my last one, but it's something to do with you at your core. If you don't feel I'm not smart enough, I'm not confident enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not lovable, all of these different ones for different people, there'll be one that's really more rooted and stronger. And if you can get that, when you say it then, because you have to, with these things like Steve's saying, they're really powerful, but you have to believe it, because if you're just saying it and it doesn't feel right, nothing will really happen. But if you can really connect to that and then rephrase it to I am, the opposite of what that would be, and something that's powerful and really deeply connects with you. And that could be, yeah, so some people have things around I am not confident, I am not important, and all these things, but you could say the opposite and say it in a powerful way, whichever one means to you, that I am worthy, I can't think of what I'm trying to say. I am enough. Yeah.
Oh, that is a really interesting way to look at it. And I was just thinking about this observing what you've done in the past. So like when it comes to confidence for me, I'm like, what is it about this certain thing that I do that I'm really confident in? What's the reason? What resources am I using? Why am I aligned? Why am I in flow state when I do that? So when I'm doing talk shows or talks, what is it about that? What is it about that I have no issue with looking silly, or, perception doesn't really matter at that point. And then other times it does. Yeah. What is it about those environments, and how can I replicate those environments in other areas of my life?
Well, it's like transference then, Owen, isn't it? You can, once you know you can do it good in one area, you can transfer it. And like Darryl said again, it's back into your awareness. Just be aware of what I'm doing well in this point. How can I transfer those skills and the way I think and the way I believe and my processes that I'm using there into any other area of your life? And that's probably key. Once you learn to do that, then you can expand on anything you want.
Yeah, definitely. I just find it just so fascinating. Like I said, I keep harping on about it, just how people can be so unbelievably, fearless in certain areas and not others. It's very, very interesting. Like the thought of me, say, going traveling around the world, I couldn't even contemplate that as being able to do that. So that's a narrative I've created around that. Why do I think that I can't do that? What fear is in my way there? What's blocking me from doing that? And, like you said, we said before, you start believing in some of these assumptions that you have about yourself. Which is really interesting. This isn't necessarily my specialist subject, what we're talking about today, which is why it's so great to have you guys on. So let's keep the energy flowing. So Darryl, what else?
Definitely can't travel at the moment.
Yeah, true. I didn't mention that this is around the time of the pandemic, so I probably should have mentioned that. Probably makes a lot more sense, because this might be an opportunity for us to work on our own self-confidence at home. But sometimes having external environments does help us grow as people. But there we are. So Darryl, what else do you have for us?
Yeah, jumping on from that, and what you've discussed as well, it's the story we tell ourselves, isn't it? It's the key. So just search in the story, and in those situations where you are powerful and you are confident, but really courage only comes when you're scared. So there's certain things we do, we're not scared. So it's not courageous. So for some people, it's not courageous to stand on a stage because they don't feel the fear. But for some people, it's the bravest thing they'll ever do. So it's all about your story and your experiences throughout your life as well. There could have been certain experiences that have created stories that in one area were powerful, but in the other area, there was the opposite. You maybe stood up in front of your family and spoke, and they were really supportive, and maybe you did something else in another area, and then you had a negative reaction. So it's often what people put back on us, and we then worry about the judgment. So all of this self-esteem comes back to worrying about what others think of you. When you have a high self-esteem, the secret is you don't care what people think of you. Because when you have low self-esteem, you're taking everything everyone says and you're taking it on as your own, and that voice is often from outside and put on you. And sometimes it's not even true. And like I said before, I think in an earlier episode, you're not what you think you are. You're not what they think you are. You're what you think they think you are. And if that story is being negatively put on you and it keeps coming like that, and you keep living that cycle, of course, you're going to have low self-esteem and not be able to break out of it. So it's focusing inwards, blocking out the noise, because there's always going to be people that abuse you. There's always going to be people who don't agree. There's always going to be, especially the more, it's so true, the more you step into your light, you attract more of the great people, but you also attract people who disagree and don't like people to stand out and don't like that. So they'll say stuff, but it's being able to be okay with that. It's not hiding from it. You're not great so everybody loves you. You just love yourself, and whoever's right in your life will be there. You just ultimately don't care at that point. So it's getting to a state where you're not letting the opinions of others affect you, because that's the key.
Yeah, I like the idea, and I was thinking about the word judgment when you were saying that. Our fear of being judged and judgment being put towards us will massively affect our ability to want to do something or not do something, that fear. And I guess that's a classic public speaking issue, is being judged by the audience for what you say. And knowing that, unfortunately, like we said in episode 2 of this series about trolling online, the more you put yourself out there as an entrepreneur, the more likely you are to be judged for who you are. But also you're going to have some amazing people too, obviously showing you lots of love. But it's, how much of that judgment can you take, and that comes to how you feel, like you said, in yourself, your inner values and beliefs, and why you do what you do, I like Steve said earlier about, being passionate about what you do too, is that if you really love what you're doing and it means a lot to you, it has a lot of power. And those judgments don't affect you so much because you're doing it for the reasons that you want to do it for, rather than doing it for others, which does make judgment very, very complicated if you're doing it for other people.
So there's another technique comes in there, because to not be judged, as we're talking about attraction and what we attract into our lives, is to learn not to judge ourselves first, judging ourselves and others and situations. So a practice I used many years ago was to learn to come from nothing. So, when you see somebody who's a certain way, instead of thinking something, you stop that thought. So you come from nothing. You have no judgment about whatever's going on, because we don't know the full story behind whatever's going on for that person. So the more we lose our own judgment of things, then I think the less we start to get judged, because, as you said, rightly so, with the passion, people get your passion for something and probably accept things a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think you got to be careful with that though, because on the other side, you can get more flack the more you share. So it's also like, that's a great way to start, but to really ultimately be free of it, you have to just be not bothered that people are saying stuff. And almost, I embrace it now. I'm almost happy if people don't agree, because I'm just stepping into my truth, and the right people will get it and the wrong ones won't. So it's getting to that stage where it just doesn't affect you at all. And it doesn't matter. Even if they do they can say the most horrible things. It doesn't have to affect you. That's your choice.
Yeah, I think another good one is to call yourself out as well. So you can sit down and write down all the things that you think you're not good at or not confident with, and then read it back and call yourself out on it and go, well, why do you think you're not good at that? And have that conversation with yourself and go, oh, hang on. Yeah. So it's a bit like when I've had therapy over the years and coaching, that's a technique that they've used. They'll ask me why I've made a statement about myself. They want to actually reflect on it. There's no grounds for evidence or anything. It's just a narrative that I've created. I can't do this. And they'll say, why? And you're like, I'm not sure, actually. So if you can write down that for yourself, sit down and write all the things that you think you're good at and all the things you think you're not good at, and actually reflect on it and go, that is bullshit. That's not true at all. And it's probably going to be quite an empowering exercise. And Steve, I know so we're working together and I'm doing exercises as part of this 21-day program. So exercises like that, something that you use with your clients?
Yeah, very often, depending on the client, some people will like to do exercises, some people don't. But I find them very empowering. Putting pen to paper and writing about yourself and your own experience does start to bring your own patterns out.
Yeah, no. So that's the way I kind of absorb and learn things as I go through my personal development. That's why I brought it up, because it's something that I really enjoy doing. So before we head over to Polly, Darryl, is there anything else you've got on this one?
Yeah, I was just thinking then, as you both were saying about what I do with my clients, and I'm just thinking it's really powerful. Like you said, just simple questions, asking why they don't, to explore it, why they don't feel they're confident to do that. And then often, even when they're answering, they realize that it's not really much there, it's limiting them, because a lot of them are quite self-aware. And they kind of know it's not really true. So it's kind of that, but that starts to break it down. And I quite often ask the question, how true is that for you? And try and bring comparisons in and different exercises to kind of break through that. Because a lot of the time we kind of know it's bullshit in a sense. And it's just really breaking that down and bringing that awareness to that really gets the power started.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful. So, Polly, over to you on this one for ideas, tips, and techniques that you can sort of share with us that can kind of help people boost their confidence and self-esteem. And before you do that, I just wanted to pick up on something you said in the last question about, I'm sure, so I've heard it before, and I think it was you, like 2 years ago, told me about this. But it was like you said, if you do something, a task that's too much for you and you fail, then obviously you're not going to get where you need to. If something's too easy, you're going to feel despondent. Can we just pick up on that again and just explain that in the kind of detail of, try and use this as an example. So, editing videos for me and telling stories through emotive imagery is kind of where I thrive. Yeah, it's testing, but not too testing. It's right in the middle. But if I was to say, I don't know, just make a video with one still image, it's too easy. It won't satisfy me. I'll feel really despondent. But if I was going to go outside and start filming a mini film with loads of camera gear and actors, I'm completely out of my depth and I will feel a bit of a sham. So is that an example of what you're talking about?
It's a lovely example. And what's really important about it is that nobody can tell you what the just right challenge is, that sweet spot. It's something that you can be helped to work out what's right, just right for you. And that's the beauty of kind of coaching, is that as coaches, we don't tell people what to do, or we don't assume that we know more than the person we're helping, because you're an expert in yourself and only you can decide what is the just right challenge. So you can decide the bit in the middle, which is kind of stretching. We want to stretch ourselves a little bit so we can grow into that space. However, we don't want it to be so terrifying that we're vomiting in our own mouth and finding reasons not to do it and dreading it and hating it. Because I think it's really important that we enjoy what we do, even if it's uncomfortable. This kind of stuff's quite uncomfortable for me to do, but I'm thriving into this experience, because every time you do the thing that you're not so sure about, and every time I do it, we grow. We come away punching the air and thinking, I did it. So that's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? That's what it's all about. And I know that Amy Cuddy did some really interesting stuff around, it was about power posing and things and confidence building through things like that. But she talked a lot about having had a terrible accident in her life. She was en route to being a prodigy and having a terrible accident and having a head injury, which really set her back in terms of her intellectual kind of ability and her competency and cognitive functioning. And she said that she had to put herself in a position where she had to every day go and do that thing that really terrified her and keep going back and doing it until she one day forgot that it had once been something that really scared her. And she only remembered that when a student came to her, and she was lecturing by this point, and she then heard in the student the same story of, I feel like an imposter, I don't belong here. And she, at that point, then remembered that she had once felt like this and forgotten. And the solution to that was to keep going back and keep doing the thing that was uncomfortable until it became the norm. Yeah. So we have to keep pushing ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense. And I kind of I'm always able to reflect on things that I've experienced. So when it comes to video calling, I remember I said to my partner, I'm never going to do video calling. And I said, it's because it's just not the same as meeting somebody in person. But when I really knew that the narrative was, actually, I just didn't want to do it in person. I wasn't confident enough to be on a video call. I felt really self-conscious and I needed to see them in person to feel safer. Absolutely. So I was saying it was because, it's my value, but really it's because I was scared of doing video calls. So I had to put myself out there, and now I absolutely love it. And I just come alive on a video call.
It's wonderful. It's a lovely example. But that feeds on quite nicely to your question, which was tips and strategies. And I think one of those things is to take that thing that you're not comfortable with and to change the narrative about it. So I think we can be attracted towards our fears rather than the possibility of the thing we could achieve by doing any given thing. And so here I would say is sometimes just change what you say. So my technology just doesn't work out for me because this is my big fear, is around using technology and losing, connection and messing it all up. It has become I'm learning how to make technology my friend. So it's a shift on language. And I think sometimes we have to think about what it is we tell ourselves before we do any one thing and the words that we're using. So I can achieve needs to become I'm in the process of learning how to.
So would you say a good way to think about it is not think about it as an absolute? So people say, oh, I'm terrible with technology, so they don't even attempt to try. So the story is they're no good with it, and that's it for the rest of their life. So I guess challenging that and not having absolutes is important, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And so sometimes it's as simple as just adding yet on. So I can't do that might just be I haven't learned how to do that yet. And that's a really small shift on language, but it's suggesting that something else is possible, or even changing the word but to and. I can't do that. I'd like to do that, but I can't. I'd like to do that, and I haven't worked out how to do it yet. So very, very subtle uses of language can be incredibly empowering.
So I suppose there's also the ability to ask for help. I can't seem to do this. I'm going to ask for help, and then someone gives you the tools for you to empower yourself.
Yes.
To learn it.
And the power of the team. So that feeds on really nicely to the idea that we don't have to be, in terms of confidence, sometimes we kind of need to have other people around us that can either help us learn the things we want to learn, or help us be the people we want to be, cheerleading us on the side, or, skilling us up to do those things we want to do. So I think it's powerful to have people around you that believe in you and that are going to give you really helpful messages. That's one of my little top tips, and one of my strategies is when I'm going to do something that I'm really anxious about, or if I'm having a little bit of a lull in my confidence, I know who the people in my team are that I will talk to, because they'll remind me what I'm good at, they'll remind me of my capabilities, and they'll encourage me to get on with it. So it's a really, really powerful thing.
It's really powerful, and it kind of, because I come from a big passion with polyvagal theory, which talks a lot about to be able to self-regulate, you need to start with co-regulation. So co-regulation with others allows you to learn the tools to self-regulate.
Absolutely.
And actually, that hasn't come up on the show yet, which is really powerful, which is, we're talking about self-confidence here, but sometimes to gain self-confidence, you need to be guided through, group confidence, joint confidence, inspiration to gain the tools to be self-confident. So would you say that, definitely applies to this?
Very much so. I think that's a lovely sort of description that you have, a lovely way of thinking about it. It's the thing where we can have other people help us learn to do anything, like learning how to soothe. If you want to self-soothe, you have to learn how to soothe and be soothed first. If you want to learn how to be confident, or if you want to learn how to be independent, you have to learn how to be dependent. So it's okay. It's about giving ourselves permission to need help and guidance to learn or experience in something helpful, knowing that then we can move on to being more able to do that for ourselves. Yes. So I love that. Oh, and that's so lovely and helpful. I think with children, what we do is we have them securely attached and dependent upon us, so they can move on and grow into securely attached, independent people. So I think it's a really, really powerful piece of work that you do. By the sounds of it, that's really, really important and powerful and valuable.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes when it comes to sort of understanding human experience, personal development and stuff, even if you don't have much knowledge, is to kind of have your language to explain it. And that's the language I can. And, since my stepson came into my life, I was able to understand even more about co-regulation, co-soothing, co-soothing and all that. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So children get to show you, what real connection is, and you can bring that into adulthood. But
children can teach us a lot. If we're really listening, children can teach us a lot. And I've had the best ever advice from children. And one of the experiences I had was having a real struggle with my motivation and having a conversation with a a friend's daughter who gave me a recipe for motivation, and it was beautifully done by a 9-year-old girl who, you know, inspired me to I think I was to have some chili flakes to put a fire in my belly again. I had to have some blinkers to help me not get distracted by shinies. I had to have some pom-poms to cheerlead myself, and I had to have a magnifying glass to pay attention to the successes that I could create along the way. And that was the most empowering thing I've ever heard, and it came from the mouth of a babe. So we have to listen to children more because they can teach us things. And I wonder what children could teach us about confidence and self-esteem.
Yeah, well, like me and Steve and Darryl already mentioned about how children kind of just have this amazing abundance of kind of awareness and confidence and knowing who they are, and it's not been, I guess you can say, it's not been tarnished yet by life and human beings. So
absolutely,
you know, I think the journey you go on from 3 and 4 years old, the journey you go on from there has a massive impact on, you know, how you become an adult. I mean, that's a whole other show.
Oh, absolutely. We could have so much fun. If I was to give you some tips, because that was the question you asked me, I would just say that, so we talked about getting feedback from other people, but I think it's so important that we create a sort of powerful mantra for ourselves. So it's like a message that we tell ourselves to cheerlead us on. Now, when I'm going off to do anything that I feel daunted by, I'll have a little post-it note in my back pocket, and it'll say 3 key points for me that I can read and look at to give me a little bit of a boost. And it's usually things like, if I'm going to do a presentation, it might be something like, just remember that these people are human beings and they'll forgive you if you make a mistake. It might say, just assume that no matter what, people will have fun here with you today. And so there might just be a couple of little things I say to myself that helps me just feel a little bit kinder to me, and giving myself a positive message and giving yourself a positive message is something that we can absolutely do all the time, whether it be on a post-it note or whether it just be something we remember, or whether it be the words of a song that we play when we need that pickup because we know that message is going to resonate with us in a helpful way. So again, that comes back to our words, but it's really, really important, really important. I'd also like to just mention something about recognising our gifts. I think it's really valuable that we pay attention. And again, sometimes it's about the magnifying glass, getting it out and just recognising what capabilities and strengths we've got, and keeping that in our minds and holding on to that at times when our confidence might feel at its most wobbly. The third thing I would say is about spring cleaning our thoughts. So if I had a prop with me, it would be my feather duster, and I'd have a bucket. And I would say that sometimes what we have to do is we have to spring clean our thoughts and clear the clutter of our minds and get rid of those thoughts that are unhelpful or maybe holding us back, and put them in the bucket and park them up and not take them with us, because our thoughts are not facts. They are simply opinions, and they can really influence what we take forward and what we do and what we believe is possible.
That's amazing. Thank you. Some really, really good stuff to talk with there. And the thoughts aren't facts. I've heard that one before. It's classic. And one of my friends does the post-it note thing. Actually, around the house. So when I go and visit, like I might pop to Lou or helping in the kitchen and go, there's even more post-it notes here. And they're all like key messages that really help her to stay aligned and stay empowered, you know. Very, 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 very cool stuff.
I also think it's the power of envisaging as well. So like if you want to think about and imagine yourself being confident and having really good self-esteem, you can really give a lot of attention to imagining. It could be like a video situation where you imagine if you were watching the video of you kind of really kicking the ass out of life, or if you just imagined what you wanted to be, the more detail we can describe about what we would look like and behave like, possible it is to actually create that outcome.
Wow, yeah, thank you so much. There's some really tangible tools there that people can start to use. Like I said, the post-it note thing is a great one. There's a lot of talking there about narrative, and visualization is something else that we haven't talked about today, but there's many more tools. We'll be doing way more episodes on this kind of thing anyway. And yeah, you and me are definitely going to do some episodes together soon, which is going to be awesome. All right, so now we're going to have a little look at the more people-pleasing side. So what are we doing with the information that we're receiving from people towards us, whether it be parents, friends, siblings, work colleagues, what they say about us, the comments they make? How do we take these on board? And does that create people-pleasing? Because I think to a certain extent, people-pleasing can be massively affected, can massively affect your confidence, obviously, because the actions that you're taking aren't really for you, they're for others. So there may be an element of feeling lost with that. But the people-pleasing thing, I think, has a big impact here. So from your perspective, Steve, on this one, do you think the people that we're around massively affect our ability to be confident?
Yeah, and again, I think it usually comes from a younger self, the child within, and us probably feeling that you've let somebody down in some aspect of your life. And then you start overcompensating and wanting to please. And then if you don't please somebody, then you feel something inside yourself. And it's a feeling of not coming up to standard, not doing what they want, and not being yourself and doing what's right for you. So yeah, when we overcompensate for things because we're looking to please, and again, we're looking for, what is it? We're looking for usually a parent figure to give us the praise. It's the praise that we missed at some point. And if we're missing that, we are continuously trying to please everybody. And that can be exhausting.
Yeah, kind of that quest to keep getting topped up, by the response you get to your people pleasing of them. And that, even from a love languages perspective, that gets quite dangerous, especially if the way you're delivering a love or an act of love towards them, if they're not perceiving it that way, you're never going to get the reaction you need. So you get stuck in this kind of trap in there. So Darryl, for you, what's your interpretation of this one?
Yeah, that was brilliant put by Steve there. It really makes you think about my journey. And for me, I was a real big people pleaser, and it's been quite the change. And I feel like Steve was just touching on there. As a society, we're kind of taught, we're not really taught to love ourselves, even by most of us as a majority, by our parents. We're taught to please others, make others happy, do this because others. And I still get that from my parents say stuff now that's really conditioned in them, that I'm like, no, that's not a good way. Because it's teaching you to just, like Steve said, to do these things that can really hurt you. And it's not done as you feel it's being done. I feel like, oh, you're a loving person. But when I looked at it for myself and at its core, it's for selfish reasons. Everything we do is kind of for selfish reasons, in a sense. We're selfish creatures in a way. But selfish doesn't have to be the word we use in society where it has its negative connotations. But we're doing that so we feel good. We're making ourselves feel good by doing that because we feel that's what we need to do, in a sense. That's what I got from it. But really, to be loving is to respect yourself and then have the boundaries there and to do it like that. So for me, it was a huge transformation. And it's part of how I, like I say, into my greatness, stepping into all of that and being your true self. Because when you're focusing on what others want, there's so many different things. And how are you ever going to be yourself, true yourself, and do all these things if you're worried about what they think about it? Because you'll never be able to. And your self-esteem is directly linked. It'll be low. And that's why that's a big part of the reason why mine was low. But when I twisted that into I want to help people, I care, but there's a completely different focus on it now. It starts with me, and my biggest thing for me is to honor myself and be true to myself. And whether that costs me relationships or no matter, it doesn't matter now. That is the core. And that's where true love can come from anyway. And the true power comes from. So I feel it's a big part. And from childhood as a society, we worry what people think. And we build our sense of self around that, in a sense. So that's why a lot of us don't have a strong sense of self or a strong self-esteem. Because our sense of self is built around others' opinions. If they say good things about me, I'm a good person, I feel good. And that's very dangerous, as we know, as we're saying it now, to a game to play. And that's why there's a lot of low self-confidence and low self-esteem. People don't know who they should be.
So true. Thank you for the subliminal plug as well, Darryl. You mentioned true love. That's my surname, of course. But what I get is approval, isn't it? We're looking for approval in some way and externally.
Yes.
Rather than having it internally. And that's what it all is. So if we're looking for happiness out there, we're never going to find it. I know people who've gone and travelled the world looking for themselves, but the only way they really find it is within themselves. So it doesn't matter where they are at that moment, in whether the light bulb comes on, it's happening inside yourself. So once you give approval of yourself inside, then self-esteem, the way you are and the way you're not, as I say, because none of us are perfect. So it's just approval of ourselves, acceptance of ourselves, and that will build your own self-esteem and confidence.
It's brilliant. You've just described a big part of my journey. The travelling bit you hit on the spot. You just described me. I went away to explore, which did help, but it was all inwards. And I always say that. I gone away and everything I ever wanted and ever needed was in here. It just gave me the opportunity to find it by changing the experiences and changing the dynamics. By getting out away from the people and all those things that you put on you, it's easier to then go in and change yourself. So I suppose that's a big part of the power. So traveling is powerful, but it's not to get away. It's to find yourself in a sense. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like self-love, self-compassion, sense of self is something. Well, I think that's a whole other episode probably, but there are other wordings for what we're talking about here today. And one narrative that I just remembered I had from when I was a teenager in my early 20s, perfect example. So I felt that if I was too confident, I'd be cocky and people wouldn't like me.
Yes.
So if I'm too good, then people won't like me. And that's a narrative that I carried through, and that really held me back. It held me back from promotions, held me back from voicing my opinion. It could be a political belief, or it could be an opinion about a film even. I might go, yeah, I might have thought it was a rubbish film. I'd be like, yeah, it was all right, wasn't it? Because there's a combination of people pleasing, but also, that element of, I don't want to feel too like I'm empowered by my own belief, because I might look like an arrogant, cocky guy. So that's a prime example where our narratives kind of take us in the sort of direction we don't need to be.
Yeah, it's so normal though, Owen, isn't it? That's just across most of the population, they have some variation of that, and I've had some variation of that. But because that's why most of us are playing small, and that's why my mission is to help people play big, because this is a problem. Then you play small. You let your gifts shine. You don't let your gifts shine because you don't want to make other people feel bad, basically, in that sense, about themselves. We don't have that put on yourself. And then you stand out and then you get slack for it, because a lot of us do when we're younger. So yeah, it's so powerful. Keeps you from playing big.
Yeah, so for you, Polly, would you say that the people-pleasing aspect is definitely going to affect either esteem and confidence?
I think so. I think that we definitely place a lot of value on how we're perceived by other people in the world and other people in our lives that matter. So it's kind of sometimes that thing where when people come for coaching, they'll talk a little bit they'll tell a story, and it'll be about what someone else said and what someone else did. And what we'll do is we'll bring that conversation back to what anything means about you. What everything and anything is all about, really about you and yourself and who you are. And how can we have it so that you're really clear that you're being and behaving how you want to be. So when I work with people around this issue, I start off by looking at values and rules for life. So our values are, are the key things. Our values are like our fingerprints, really. We leave them on everything we touch. And our values kind of define who we are and what's important. They can be inherited through our childhood. The people around us can give us values that maybe in adulthood we kind of revisit and realise that they're not ours. So I think that at any point in time, just checking in with the values you have in your life and making sure that you live life in alignment with your values is really, really important. Because when we start to try and live our lives by other people's values and not our own, things get really, really uncomfortable. So yes, I think we do pay a lot of attention to what other people think about us. Some people more than others. I know people that are really grounded. Their feet are firmly planted in knowing who they are, knowing what their values and rules for life are, and knowing what they bring to the world, and then deciding to be at the cause of things and not the effect of life or what other people think. And it's a really powerful place to be. But we're all human. So we all care about, we care about who we are in the world in the context of other people. We all want to connect. We all want to be loved, and we all want to belong. So it's natural, isn't it, that we're gonna look to the people around us and check in and make sure that we're being validated. It's just, I guess, important that we've got at least one foot firmly planted in ourselves, in our own lives and what matters most, and that we only allow the people that matter most to us to have an impact on how we see ourselves or the validation that we perhaps seek.
Yeah, thank you. I love the addition of values in there too. If you can establish what your values are, and that can help you start to cultivate self-worth, self-love, and boundaries as well. Darryl mentioned boundaries, how important
Absolutely.
it is to know your boundaries, but sometimes it can be a bit tricky to have boundaries if you don't really know what your values are.
Yes.
And your values can, impact what you believe in and what your beliefs are. And that can impact the path you go down, be it hobbies or career or relationships. Those values are key.
Absolutely.
And people pleasing for me has been a big issue, a big crutch for me over the years.
Yes.
Not so much anymore, but it's something that I'm very familiar with. And it does massively impact your self-esteem, because you kind of lose who you are a little bit just based off reactions that you're getting to your behavior. So your behavior is effective of that, especially if you're looking at the love languages thing. If there's certain love languages that a way you talk in love and it's not being received by your friends and your partner or whatever, can massively impact kind of your self-worth too, and therefore your self-esteem.
Absolutely. Do you think that as we get older and wiser, that changes? Because I just have a sense as people become wiser in their lives, they sort of start to really decide that it's more important to understand who they are and what they want. I wonder if there's an age sort of discrepancy between people being more able to focus in and accept and be comfortable with who they are than perhaps people who are younger.
And now we're going to look at the comparison trap. So how comparing ourselves to others' versions of success has a big impact on how we own our own greatness. How can we own our own greatness if we keep comparing ourselves to other versions of that from others, especially with places like Instagram? So for you, Steve, on the comparison trap, do you think that in 2020 is probably a massive indicator of self-confidence?
The comparison trap is self-worth in a nutshell, I think. When we're comparing to others, we're never going to feel good enough, because usually we've got other things coming in like jealousy. Why have they got a better physique than me? Why have they got a better car than me? And we'd always looking at why have somebody got something better. Because when we start comparing, we're not usually looking to put the other person down. We're looking at something that's taken our focus and how have they got something that's better. And comparison is a killer. We got to just let go of comparing to anybody else. They've got what they've got what they haven't got, and it's none of our business, really, is it? It's that's their lives, and when we are not with ourselves and focusing out there for comparison to everything else, then it can be damaging to our own self-worth, self-esteem. Confidence gets knocked, because then we go into another dialogue. So I think it plays a big part, and especially on social media. Youngsters looking at models on, there's a comparison of how they should look and how they should be and how they should act, and forget all that and just be yourself.
Yeah, it's huge, especially for those late teens, early 20s. This is the age of Love Island. So their perception of what love is and dating is being told through that narrative, which is going to make people feel a bit rubbish about themselves. I'm never going to be able to get someone like that, because clearly they only go for people like that. So I don't stand a chance. And it creates quite a toxic narrative for us to take on board. So Darryl, for you on this one, obviously, as always, you're a little bit younger, so the school system was probably even more based on comparison than even our eras were.
Yeah, this is a big one. I'm loving what you guys are saying. Like Steve's alluding to, it's the word dangerous comes to my mind. And when you say about the Love Island thing, and I actually, I did kind of follow one of the seasons a few years ago, and then you see afterwards that like pretty much within a year, all of them are broken up, and some of them are staying together just to make money, and within a year, there's like none of them together. So you base it on that, and then behind the scenes, it's all that false illusion and the bullshit. It is. And when you compare it to, like Steve was getting into with the beautiful models and all this, but they don't wake up looking like that. And why are we making this comparison that is unrealistic, unachievable, unattainable? And then people's self-worth is caught up in that, in the sense that then they compare and then they come up short, they come up wanting, they're not as good as these people. And it goes even deeper than that to, I can never be like that. They then separate. Not that you'd want to be like a photoshopped image, but like in terms of the business world and all different worlds as well, the success people have in whatever way, whether it be as spiritual or financial, all of it, then you're separate from these people that are famous, these people that have made it, these people that have done well. And are they got something special? And then you just take that from yourself and you depower yourself, and then you play small. So it all comes back to that self-esteem, that playing small, and that comparison can really kill you. And you need to focus, and it's true, successful people focus, true successful people focus on themselves, their own journey. It's human nature to compare, but the compare, you have it under control, you understand it, and you just focus on what you're doing. And so much in me starting my business, you're looking at what's good, what's the trend, what's this, what's that, who says this, and there's so much noise. And that's the easiest way to go wrong, and the easiest way to just give up. But you just focus on what it is in your heart, what is in your mission, what it is you want, and really understand that, and just move forward with that, because we're all beautiful and unique and special as we are. And the only way you can be the best is by being the best of you. So that's what you got to focus on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And there's two sort of little nuggets of storyline that I want to share. I've been trying to keep it in my mind's eye because I listen to you guys. I get so inspired that I go off on a tangent. I got to say these two things. It's been floating around the whole episode. And one of them is, in an entrepreneur sense, this can apply to the workplace too, and friends, but I'm talking about entrepreneurs here because I know a lot of entrepreneurs listen to this show, just because that's the following we've initially had. And prime example is me. Okay, so I've got a YouTube channel and social media platform which is all about mental health. So I'm obviously in a primal sense going to have a little cheeky look on Instagram and Twitter and stuff to see what other men's movements are around. So I'm finding 20, 30, 40 men's movements. Some are doing more blog stuff, some are doing more videos, some are doing more talks, some are doing amazing support groups. So of course I'm going to start going, oh, well, I'm not doing that. And look how many followers they have. Oh, and I'm not doing that. And he's coming off really well on camera there. And then this is a prime example of how my brain would work with that, and forgetting that I can spend all day looking at all of the other stuff that they're doing, going, oh, maybe I should do that, rather than just coming back to me and going, but what am I good at in this part of society, in the men's health movement? What are my skill sets, and what is it about me that connects to an audience? Because they could be doing all of that stuff, but if they're not being true to themselves and coming from a place within them, after a while, that's going to become quite obvious. Whereas it's just from an entrepreneur perspective, it happens all the time. It's coming back to you and why you're doing it, and what skills do you have, and what is it about your energy and your belief that is shining brightly to the world that you see. And for example, for me, editing videos and telling stories through visuals is what I'm good at. I spent years and years and years watching films, hanging out with actors, and I absolutely love it. So I've used my love for film to teach me how to emotively tell a story through imagery. I didn't know I could narrate fairly well and have the voice for radio, as some of my friends say. I'm lucky that that's the case, but those are the things that when I align with it, I feel super empowered, and that's what I need to run with, because that's what will make Man Cove and the business be really, really successful. And that comparison trap is a prime example of that. And one other thing that a few of my colleagues in different businesses have is they'll say to me, right, because these are amazing therapists and stuff, they'll say, I just don't get it. Why is that person doing so well? Like, it's so annoying. They're doing all these corporate things and get all these people coming to their events. Like, no one comes to my events. Maybe I'm just not meant to do this. Maybe I'm just... But they're comparing it to what they're seeing. But then what I say to those people, because I know the other people they're talking about, those other people are not as qualified, have nowhere near as much years experience, and maybe don't necessarily have the right energy for it. But the difference is that person is 100% owning who they are, and their confidence is coming from just, they know who they are. So even if they're blagging their way through, they're super successful, and all respect for them for doing that, because they're just purely who they are. They don't bullshit. They're very honest, and they just ring companies up and say, want to have a talk done? They just get out there and get the job done. But my friend is coming from a place like, oh God, I'm not sure if I'm good enough. They are not going to call that company, because they are not feeling confident enough in themselves to believe that they can deliver that course compared to the way that other person delivers it. And it's just, whenever they say it to me, it just gets me down a little bit, because I want to support them best I can, but they're getting stuck in this. They get despondent and kind of, but it's not fair. It's not fair. Why are they doing so well? That's not going to get you anywhere, that energy. And they've been able to shift and change that. And a lot of them have been really successful since. I'm so proud of them, because they're just owning their own, like Darryl says, owning their own greatness. And they're just aligned with their mission for who they are, not what the business model is telling us, which is a dangerous thing. Anyway, I'm harping on about these two stories, but I felt it might have been quite useful. So for you, Polly, with the comparison trap that often us get stuck in, especially in the world of social media right now, I really wanted to ask you about when we compare ourselves to others and how that affects confidence in an Instagram world, for instance. But more, as we for once have a lady on the show, do you think the comparison trap, be it mentally, emotionally, career, or physically, is different for men and women, or is it essentially just the same thing?
Ooh, now there's a great question. I would say that I think it's one of these things that will depend upon your personality and your self-esteem rather than gender. I think that we assume that issues around maybe body image and self-esteem are primarily issues that relate to females, but I've learned more and more that there is as many men out there who have that challenge as there is women, and I think we make assumptions that it's that certain kind of challenges are more female or male oriented. I really do think that it comes down to the individuals. I think we're all at risk of that terrible comparison thing, where you can have had a perfectly lovely day and be really happy with what you experienced, and then you check in on social media and see what everybody else has been doing, and then somehow undermine your own experience as being less valuable or less fun or less less interesting. And this is coming from someone who's got a massive kind of FOMO. I've got a really big sort of like fear of missing out, because I'm an opportunist and an optimist, so I'm always kind of want to squeeze every bit of fun and adventure out of life, but that's a risky place to be too, because it can take you away from just enjoying what you've got, and it can take you into a place of comparison to other people. So I don't know if this is more male or female oriented, or if it's about different personality structures, and perhaps people who aren't as grounded in themselves and knowing what they want, perhaps be more likely to be looking to see what other people are doing and a place of comparison.
We were just saying about, like you just said, that it's a human issue, a human interaction, a human behavior. It's not, gender has nothing to do with it. Age has nothing to do with it either. I was saying about how one of my friends was very much, why are they so successful? They do so well, I'm as good as them, and I don't know why my business isn't working. But they're comparing their model to the other person's model and their personality. Like you said, you've got to own your own greatness and your own personality.
I think there's always that kind of potential. Again, it's just about the being human thing, where you kind of, we do check in and see what we're doing, and we do measure ourselves compared to other people. So, but we have to be so careful, because if you're at the beginning and you're comparing yourself to someone else's middle, then your measurement strategies are completely out of kilter. It's not going to serve you well to measure your success in that way. I do think it's really valuable to find ways to measure progress, because if we're measuring our progress, then we're in a better position to reflect, perform to our potential, recognise our breakthroughs, celebrate our wins, and cheerlead ourselves. And I think that's so important, to be able to see how we can move forward and to notice what we're achieving. But at the same time, we have to be very careful about what we measure ourselves against, because hey, I'll tell you what, there's always going to be somebody else with a bigger boat.
Definitely. And it's I always say to a lot of my friends who struggle a bit with this about circumstance too. It's not as simple as like you all go on the same path and it tends to go the way the model says. Sometimes circumstance, knowing the right people, right place, right time, it sometimes doesn't matter how good you are. If sometimes you need those circumstances, you've got to give yourself a bit of leeway, a bit of compassion, say, do you know what? I've not been dealt the best hand, but I've done so amazingly well with the hand I've had. And I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
And building from that, because it's not as simple as, reading all these blogs on, how to grow your business, especially on YouTube, how to go from 0 subscribers to 1 million subscribers.
Yeah. Well, my overnight success has taken me 5 years. And you've heard other people saying that, haven't you? My overnight success. It's a really great sort of quote, because really there's a lot of people saying a lot of BS out there about all the things they're doing. And, we do that, don't we? We don't go out there in the world and say I'm rubbish. We go out there and we upsell ourselves. But, everybody's facing challenges. Everybody's working on stuff. We're really all in a different journey. So I think it's really important that we don't compare, because, our journey might be a different one. We might be headed in a different direction. And when we hit a challenge, it might be that was supposed to happen to teach us something. So I believe that everything comes around to teach you something, even if at the time you don't know why it's happened and you don't know what you're going to learn, and you don't feel happy about things that you're facing. It's there to teach you something. And everybody that we meet, whether we like them or don't, everybody that we meet in our life is our teacher and our student. So I think we just have to appreciate that everything around us is there to teach us stuff. And if the journey changes or we're not on track, I think I've learned I call it sort of sliding into the skid a little bit more and going with it and accepting that this is happening for a reason, and I just don't quite know what it is yet. But I'm going to learn from it and then grow my confidence based upon what outcomes I create or what I know more of because of it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And my brain's always buzzing away when I listen to people saying stuff. I'm like, oh, I need to mention this. But I've lost most of it because I was just absorbed in your amazing words. So we head off back to you, Steve. As we sort of wrap up the show, do you have anything else you feel like you might not have mentioned so far?
Well, I think, what I'd like to say to people is to learn to love, accept, and respect yourself. And to remember that no one and nothing is perfect. Nobody's broken. Everybody's fine the way they are. And whatever you are in life, right now, is where you're meant to be. And your next step is your choice. So just take the step, because we're all special and unique, and wear it well.
Love that. Thank you. Darryl, any final thoughts from you? An epic speech, perhaps?
Yeah, just a bit speechless now. That was powerful, Steve. I love that. So just what you were saying as well, and I just want to kind of touch on that. It's so true, isn't it? The belief is key, and you attract what you are. So if you're vibrating that energy and you're kind of expecting to succeed, like I'm sure in the example this other guy was, then that energy comes across. Not only do they do the calls, but when they do the call, the person on the other side feels that. Because it's not about how good you are in a sense, it's how you show up. If you and alignment was the other key. So it's that belief and the alignment. Aligned with who you are, your truth, and your unique gifts. Because you'll never be a great copycat, but you can be the greatest you. And there's huge power in that. People are drawn to that, and that truth is powerful because you believe it in your core and you vibrate at that frequency.
It's amazing. Thank you, Darryl. And for you, Polly, what are your final thoughts?
I would love to finish off just talking about adventure. So it's a value that's really important in my life, adventuring. And I guess what I mean by that is about life being an adventure and living your life's adventure. And that word adventure will mean something completely different to each of us. The most important thing is the question, which is simply, what would it mean to you? And the reason I bring that up is because I think that a really important part of confidence building comes from embracing adventure in your life. So it might just be taking an adventurous approach to your life. It could be about just micro adventures and learning how to just have moments of fun and joy. But it really can have such a massive impact on our resilience and our confidence. And so I really just wanted to end by saying that I guess you could call it being an out of office thriver. The stuff that we do when we're not doing our main role can teach us a lot about what we're capable of. When we try new things, or when we do something that gives us a chance to kind of learn a skill or learn something about ourselves, we have the absolutely perfect space to discover more about ourselves and what we can do, to get out of our comfort zone, to learn how to reach and stretch out a bit further for support, or learning how to strengthen ourselves, or just discovering how we deal with uncomfortable moments. We can learn so much from any activity about life and how to deal with everything and anything. So I just am such a big advocate of adventuring in your life and learning along the way.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I guess there's certain activities and adventures that you can go on which could even be completely unrelated to the actual confidence issue you have, but actually impacts it in the end.
Absolutely.
So if you're having confidence issues with work, but you go away and do a confidence activity completely unwork related,
absolutely,
I guess can shift and change things for you to come back to it.
I wrote a blog about biking. So I love cycling, but it was kind of really about life lessons on a bike. And I learned on a weekend biking off-road in Northumberland, kind of the wilderness, I learned about 10 really, really valuable lessons about how I needed to go forward with my life, which were things like how to deal with the overcoming the hump of the hill when you just don't want to go any further, or what do you do when you want to pick your bike up and throw it over a fence and walk away, about the importance of being prepared and having kit, about, so lots and lots of lessons can be learned doing everything and anything. I guess what I'm saying is work out what would be fun to you. It doesn't have to be jumping off cliffs or doing crazy stuff. It could just be deciding to teach yourself a new skill or try something new. It could be just deciding to have cocoa under the stars, or build a beach fire, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just about using fun stuff to learn and grow and build our confidence. And we can absolutely all have that.
Yeah, I guess there's so many things that we don't even know yet that we could potentially be really awesome at too.
Absolutely.
And going
it's
out there
incredible.
and having a go. Like when I was in my early 20s, never in my life would I thought I'd be a massage therapist. So I just thought it'd be a bit weird. I never had a massage.
Yeah.
I thought that would be weird. Did training. I thought, oh God, I'm going to be terrible at these courses. I aced all my exams. So it shows that. And then I just go, oh my God, actually, even though school was tough, I love learning. I didn't realize
Isn't it amazing?
that before. And I came out of that to the point that I've been massaging for seven years now. And people say to me, because I'm really passionate about the mind-body connection, the nervous system in with the physical massage benefits. People will say to me that, oh my God, that was like the best massage I've ever had. And for me to accept that actually, wow, I do have the ability to hold a space for a client and transform their current state through the power of touch and connection, is pretty beautiful. And nowhere in my million years would I thought that would be a skill of mine which sets me apart from others and stuff, this is why, like you said, put yourself out there. God knows what might happen.
Absolutely. You're blowing my mind. It's amazing what you're talking about. And you're telling us all really that when you find the right challenge at the right time, and you find that sweet spot, when the timing's right, you're ready, and the challenge is right, you can achieve and discover so much about your capability and grow your confidence. And who knows where that could take you next.
Definitely,
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well,
could I finish with a poem?
Yeah, go for it.
It's just that I guess like when you talk about confidence, the mindset is such an important part of that. I just wanted to finish off with a little confidence poem, would that be okay?
Let's do it.
So, if you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost certain that you won't. If you think that you'll lose, you're lost. For out of the world, we find that success begins with the fellow's will. It's all a state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win the prize. Life's battles don't always go to the strongest and the fastest man, but sooner or later, the man that wins is the man who thinks he can.
Wow, I love that.
Just thought it was a nice one to finish with, because it's just a reminder to us all that we have to believe in ourselves and we have to keep focused on what's possible. A world of possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. It's such being human is so expansive. Sometimes we just forget that, don't we? With the world and how life is, especially at the moment where everything's going on. But yeah, thank you so much, Polly, for that. As a poet myself, and I run a whole other YouTube channel full of poem videos, so that was always going to connect with me well. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being on the show with us today. I felt that was really fascinating. What I really loved about this episode, it felt like a cheerleading episode where we were really, going, you can do it, guys, which is really nice. A nice, really empowering, motivational episode here. So that brings us episode to a close. And before we go, I just want to do a big shout out and thank you to all our amazing patrons on Patreon. So that's Mike Morgan, Henry Carruth, Maggie Palmer, Roland Chesters, Hannah Irvine, Karen Goodson, and of course the amazing Stephen Truelove and Darryl Osborne. I want to thank all of you for continuing to support me through the current pandemic situation. Honestly, it makes all the difference to my life, losing all my other income. So thank you so much for allowing this to happen for me. You can sign up to the Man Cove Wellbeing community at the link in the description on Patreon. So go check it out. There's some really cool benefits there of how you can get more involved in what we're doing. So before we go, let's let the listeners know where we are. So Polly, where can we find you online?
Well, if you want to find me online, you can find me at, so my website is www.adventurouscoaching.com. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and if you just look up Adventurous Coaching, you'll find me. And if you want to find me in the real world, I'm in the beautiful Northumberland in the northeast of England, which is the most beautiful part of the world, with coastline and castles and beaches and wonderful people. So that's where you can find me. And just also to say thank you for having me on the show today, because it's been really lovely and fabulous to hear about what you're talking about today.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Polly. That's fantastic. And I can vouch for that. I've been up there, been up to the Northeast. Beautiful, beautiful. And sorry, did you mention you do stuff online too?
Yes, I do. I'm going to be putting a number of different videos out in the next sort of week, really, because I want to tap into how important it is that we all have mental fitness right now. We're finding ways to train and physically work out, look after ourselves, but I think our mental fitness is really, really important. And on all the sites I've mentioned, I'm going to be putting out some videos and some tips and things to help us all just around the next few weeks and months, and how we're going to move forward with pace, power, and purpose.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic. I will put links to most of those things in the video description. We'll definitely have you back on anyway, probably on Talk Show Extra, where you and me can just have a good old one-to-one on all things wellness. So we'll definitely make that happen. So thank you very much, Polly. And Steve, where can we find you?
You can find me on www.lovelifeloveyou.co.uk, and from there you'll find me on many other platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everything else.
All right, thanks very much. Darryl, where can we find you?
Yes, I got the darrylosborne.com website, and now, with everything going on now especially, I've decided to focus hugely on online. So it'd be great, Facebook in particular, jump over there for my mission to empower kind of heart-centered, ambitious, mission-driven souls to really step into their greatness and make an impact using their unique gifts. And I really want to grow that now. So yeah, jump on over there and enjoy the content, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you, Darryl. I just want to let everybody know at home, you can find out and see more of Darryl and Steve on our YouTube channel. So me and Steve are working together on some amazing relaxation videos and a few meditations in there too. So well worth checking out. Absolutely amazing. And Darryl has got the Greatest You series on our YouTube channel too, where he talks to the camera and G's you guys up to take yourself to the next level. So check out both of those. Next time, we'll be talking about addictive behaviors, another passion of mine, and we'll be bringing on an addiction therapist expert all the way from America, Emerald, our first American to be on the show with us. So we look forward to speaking with her. So have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay home, wash your hands, and please, please reach out to your friends online, because right now we need all the connection we can get. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.